So the final thing is, I've got the keys and I moved into my house, but the work doesn't stop for solicitors there, does it? There's still
No.
a few bits and bobs they have to do. So what are solicitors doing after I'm now in my new house?
Yeah, they're doing some pretty unglamorous paperwork that, in theory, you shouldn't ever really need to know too much about. I think there's this perception still that, I get a paper deed to say I own the house. Those documents do exist. I've got an old one from 1920 on, I don't know.
Looks like a treasure map at this point.
Yeah, it does. I could turn it the other side and do a wicked map on the other side. But that document is in essence meaningless, although it does say I can keep chickens but not pigs in my garden. It's very strange. But title deeds are all held electronically, really, in the main these days. So what they'll be doing is the solicitors will be updating the land registry to let them know that you are now the legal owner of your property. So if someone was to search the electronic record of the land registry, they'd see that, yeah, you own the house. They also have to record that the mortgage lender has a charge on the property. So if that house is ever sold, they're entitled to their money before anyone else, because they'll be what's called a first charge. They get first dibs on any money from the transaction whilst that mortgage is still there. So there's the legalities of making sure that that's done. That can go wrong sometimes. I was joking this morning, it came up actually. When I bought my first house, I used the cheapest solicitor I could find on the internet. It was a horrendous experience. They lost my deposit for about a week and couldn't find it. So that was fairly stressful, thinking your life savings have gone AWOL. Fantastic. And it turned out a few years later that I came to change the mortgage that they had never actually registered the mortgage on the title deeds of my property. So whilst I worked in financial services, I probably had to pay the mortgage, otherwise I wouldn't be able to work in my industry anymore. But I didn't actually have any legal ramifications for not paying the mortgage either, technically. And it was never in question. I was always going to pay my mortgage, but it created a right headache with trying to actually move my mortgage to a new lender, because there was like, but there isn't a mortgage on your existing property. Anyway, it can go wrong if you.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where, especially kind of newer build properties, when the land registry is still not signed over, and that can cause a bit of an issue.
And very often that's the builder solicitors are not often the best solicitors. Who they choose is not necessarily who anyone working in the industry on any volume of transactions would say is particularly efficient sometimes. But that does bring us on to something which is a real issue at the moment, is land registry are way behind on their paperwork. So whilst your solicitor might get all the documents over within, I think a lot of them are obliged to send in some of this paperwork within 28 days. The land registry might sit on it for a while, and there's been cases where we've been seeing people for a remortgage. So they might have had a 2-year deal, and they come back to us after 18 months to start thinking about looking at new rates, and the land registry is still not updated yet. And then that can actually cause delays, because they can't take out the new mortgage until the old lot of paperwork has been sorted out yet. So we've had to get land registry expedited, so they just put it to the top of the pile and they actually do it. So that's the land registry side of things anyway. It's just making sure that on paper you are the legal owner and taking care of that side of things. The other stuff which probably happened a little bit quicker, and we've kind of glossed over this a little bit, is stamp duty. They normally make sure that the HMRC have been paid your stamp duty as well.
Fully notified.
Yeah, fully notified. They've done the forms to calculate it. I mean, in essence, they're just doing it on your behalf, because you self-certify your land registry, not the land registry, stamp duty at the end of the day, which they can go back and check. So it's always worthwhile making sure that it's right, that they'll be doing your stamp duty, land tax forms, making sure the payment gets sent on that needs to get sent on, so you don't get a knock on the door later. Is there much else that they do after completion? It's really mainly just making sure that everything is tidied up and you are indeed the legal owner. They'll normally send you out, after everything's done and the paperwork's done, they don't need it anymore, you will normally get sent a load of stuff that the old that was sent into them by the old owners as well, if there's any of that knocking around. That's tidying up admin work that's probably a bit complicated and boring for even solicitors. So I wouldn't get too stuck into it. As long as they can come back to you and say, we finished tidying up the case, we've done the registration on land reg, you're sorted. If you're really particular, you can search the land registry yourself. It costs about £2.50 a go to check that you are indeed the legal owner of your property. But that's a hard one to give advice on at the moment, because to be honest, very rarely is that updated within a year. But if you get 18 months in and you did want to check, yeah, look out on the Land Reg website and see. You can check for yourself. It's a public database, anyone can have a look.